Bentornati, and welcome back to Dwarf Fortress for Beginners, the series in which I teach you how to play Dwarf Fortress using mainly the in-game tutorials and guides. Well, actually, if I got to be honest at this point, pretty much all the guides you find in-game will be so vague that all I can say is that I follow the guides' topics and heavily supplement them with research, my own testing, and a few tricks that I picked up in the last 10 years. I guess I'll have to come up with a better introduction for the next episode. Anyways, hi, Bentornati, it's been a while since I was able to release one of these, huh? I've been sick. I've got some kind of flu, complete with a fever, sore throat, and the entire shebang. On the other hand, you guys are amazing and kept subscribing, so this is going to be the first video I render since I've hit 1000 subscribers. Isn't it great? Incredible. Huge thank you to all of you, and especially now since the Dwarf Fortress community accounts for more than 30% of this channel's subs. Armok is proud of you. So, with all of that out of the way, in this episode we conclude our little mini-series about trading. This is Trading Part 4, Trading with the Elves. Look at them, here they come with their weird wooden weapons and extravagant menagerie. In Dwarf Fortress, elves are just plain weird. I mean, just look at this. As soon as they touch the depot, we start getting puddles of feather tree yolk all over the place. If you don't know what this is, a feather tree is a kind of magical tree that grows in good aligned forests, which is exactly where the elves like to establish their settlements called forest retreats. These feather trees grow feathers instead of leaves and eggs instead of fruit. After a little bit of research, I found that apparently the elves were supposed to bring feather tree eggs, but that for some reason the material definition for the feather tree egg was left at simply yolk, because I think currently it's not possible to have a multi-part fruit. Because you know, you gotta do things properly. You cannot just have an object called egg. I mean, what are you going to do when it breaks? Magically turn it into another object called broken egg? So now we have these egg yolks. If you don't know what to do with them, don't worry. Apparently neither do the elves. I just sell the yolks back to them. In my mind it's kind of a weird ritual exchange, where the dwarven broker scoops up the yolks with his hand and then goes to shake hands with the elven merchant. As a sign of peace, of course. Having performed the ritual of the yolk, we are ready to begin moving our best products to the depot and start negotiating this trade. So let's select a bunch of different things and wait for the dwarves to bring them over. Alright, here we are, ready to trade with Anna Elitovaci, the elven merchant. The elf exclaims, "Greetings, we are enchanted by your more ethical works. We've come to trade." Let's first of all take a look at what the elves have to offer. Compared to dwarves and humans, they don't usually bring a lot of goods. The thing is, they will never employ wagons, but just pack animals, and those have a limited weight capacity. What little they bring, though, can be pretty unique. Elves are masters of all that is natural, and because of that, they can have a very interesting selection of tame animals, sometimes even very exotic ones, like unicorns and grizzly bears in this example. The exact choices of animals will be different every time, because knowledge of animal breeding is part of each specific civilization heritage. So for example, the elves that come to visit you may not know how to tame and breed unicorns, but maybe they have tigers and giant eagles, or maybe just hamsters for some reason. Us being the player though, we can learn how to tame and train these animals for hunting and even for war, so I always keep an eye out for breeding pairs of some interesting creature. Then, scrolling down the list of goods, we begin noticing some other oddities. A lot of these trade goods have the keyword grown in their name. For example, this isn't just a willow barrel, but a grown willow barrel. An item that is grown wasn't built. They didn't craft it out of wood. The elves are so attached, so in tune with nature, that they would never cut down a tree and work its wood with tools. They instead somehow convince the tree to grow a limb in the shape of a barrel and then shed it willingly. This aspect of their culture is also reflected in their ethics. Remember what the Elven merchant said? They are enchanted by our more ethical works, which is to say according to the Elven ethics. This means that our own almond wood barrel here would not be considered ethical by an elf. We killed the tree and carved its flesh in the shape of a barrel. So if we were to include this in our offer, they would immediately cease the negotiation and leave in disgust. That's why most people don't really like trading with the elves. You've got to really pay attention to what you put on the table with them. What else do they have? A bunch of clothing. Notice that this isn't large clothing, meaning that in Dwarf Fortress, elves and dwarves are roughly the same size, so we could totally buy and use elven clothing if we wanted. Some of these clothes also have the grown attribute. Again, given this idea that they can grow the clothing directly out of the plant or animal ? Lots of magic involved into that, I hope. Then scrolling down more, we find a grown cherry wood helm. This is an actual piece of armor that the elves fashioned out of wood. Actually, that the elves convinced the tree to grow for them. For all intents and purposes, these are armor pieces, but the substance they're made of behaves just like any normal wood. It's light, but it doesn't make for great armor. There might be a use for it in training, but honestly, I'd rather clothe my dwarf in steel from the get-go. Other than that, the elves will usually have a selection of fruit and veggies, and some of their own musical instruments and instrument pieces. Musical instruments are procedurally generated and are different in every world and for every culture, so buying elven instruments could be a way of injecting a little bit more variety in your tavern performances, for example. And that is it. This caravan was really small, even for elves. But again, just like with the other civilizations, they will bring more goods next time if they leave happy. If instead you steal from them or offend them with unethical offers, you'll see your standing with their civilization go lower and lower until they become openly hostile. Now, let's get into the specifics of what they consider ethical or not. What will they accept from us? Any stone, gem or metal object is fine, so gems both rough and cut will be accepted. This scepter here, made of sterling silver, also will be accepted because again, metal is okay, plus I know that this is decorated with gems, which are also ethical. Pay attention to your decorated items, as the material the decoration is made of could still be considered offensive even if the decorated item isn't per se. As we mentioned already, anything made out of wood that doesn't have the grown keyword attached to it is, again, unethical. Anything made out of bone, shell, horn or tooth is also unethical for the elves, as are items of clothing made of leather or wool. And I don't think they make a distinction for wool that was sheared without killing the animal, but don't quote me on that. Another tricky situation to pay attention to is any substance in the preparation of which wood ash was involved. For example, soap, which is made with either tallow or oil mixed with lye. But lye is made with wood ash. The elves know this and take offense at the wanton slaughter of trees. Also, clear and crystal glass contain pearl ash, which is made with potash, which is made with wood ash. So, if you have a legendary glassmaker, you could sell the clear and crystal glass items to the dwarves and humans, while keeping the cheaper green glass for the elves, because it doesn't involve any kind of wood ash. So, pay attention to these items. Usually, you will not sell any soap or any lye or potash or pearl ash on its own, because these items don't really have a lot of value to them, but clear and crystal glass or glazed ceramics are another example of goods that, while looking perfectly okay would offend the elves because wood ash was used in the preparation. Okay, what else do I have here? A rock salt cabinet is ethical, made of stone, so that's totally okay. Oh, right, now let's discuss drinks and meals. How can you sell a barrel of wine or meals to the elves if they don't like the wooden barrel? Well, here's your solution: stone pots. A stone pot behaves just like a barrel for almost all uses, and it doesn't hurt elven sensibilities. You can even make metal barrels or bins. I don't bother though usually. Stone is abundant in normal embarks, and while the stone containers will weigh a little bit more than wooden ones, this doesn't really slow my dwarves down too much. Interestingly enough, elves never seem to be offended by cooked meals or food in general. I've offered meat-based meals to elves in multiple occasions, and they accepted them without blinking. And just to make sure, I tested separately pots of rendered tallow, assorted meat bits, and fish, and they accepted everything. So, if it's meant to be eaten, it is apparently ethical for the elves. Here's another interesting bit of info on elves. What they kill, they eat. Even if it was a sentient being like a goblin, a dwarf, or probably even another elf. So, thinking of this seems to be totally in line with their weird way of thinking. Alright, now let's try and finalize this trading offer. I have some more crafts in here, some clothing. Let's not select leather shoes for now, because those are unethical. These pigtail trousers, though, are good, as it would be any other clothing item made of vegetable fiber, like cotton, hemp, rope reed, etc. Last but not least, they don't mind that you keep your crafts in wooden bins, as long as you don't include the bin itself in the offer. A non-grown wooden bin would be unethical. The stuff in it can be sold separately though. Alright, and from them I will buy this unicorn, this kestrel, and this grizzly bear here. And while we're here, let's buy some of their fancy grown barrels from them. We'll be able to trade them back full of meals or booze next year. Let's also get a few musical instruments. We are still in the green, so we should be good to go when it comes to value and trade. Ah, wonderful. Thank you for your business, says the merchant. They accepted our offer. And that's how you trade with the elves. Now let me demonstrate what happens when you instead offer something unethical as part of the deal. For example, this apple wood barrel full of delicious peach cider. They refuse. Once a beautiful tree, and now it is a rude bauble fit only for your kind. The elf got offended and is now unwilling to trade. This effectively concludes the negotiations. They will not accept any other offers as demonstrated by the disabled trade button here, and importantly, this does not depend on their previous disposition. Any unethical offer immediately causes them to become unwilling to trade and leave. I'll now reload the save just so that we can have a little bit more fun offending these elves. So this time let's try with leather clothing. I have a nice pair of leather shoes right here. I'll ask for some very low value items in return, everything in the green, so technically should be a very convenient exchange for them, but they're offended. I see your low race still revels in death, that poor gentle creature. And again, they are unwilling to trade, and this lowers our standing with their entire civilization. Now for a third experiment, I have in here a horse hoof scepter, which is in the same category of bone and shell. Technically great value for the elves, but again, they get offended and we get the same message as before. They did buy the meals made with the meat of the animal, and they would also buy the raw meat. It's the crafts that offend them. Alright, as the elves collect their goods and depart with eyes full of disdain, we finally bring this trading tutorial and 4 parts mini-series to an end. It took me way longer than I expected to finish this, with many things getting in the way, last but not least of them, a full couple of weeks wasted coughing my lungs away, but it's done, and I'm happy about it. I hope you'll find it useful as well. What's in the future of Dwarf Fortress for beginners? Well, we still have a lot of topics to cover. Next on the list of guides is the one that talks about happiness and zones, which is an incredibly vast amount of mechanics and knowledge all vaguely crammed in a single help page. So definitely expect this also to become a mini-series of its own. However, I'd like to try and produce shorter episodes and maybe cover one technique or one zone per installment. For example, one episode should be only about personal quarters, or another one could be about dining rooms, another one about the effect of food and drinks, and so on and so forth. What I hope is that this way the single episodes will be easier both to produce for me and to find and consume for you. But we'll see, time will tell. And also, as always, feel free to write all your thoughts and feedbacks in the comments below. I read and answer them all. That said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next episode. Alla prossima!